to the Birdland Media Works podcast, and I'm joined by my favorite broadcaster, narrator, and heck of a good guy, Mack. Thanks for being here today.
Well, you are my favorite writer, so that means we're both mutually looking after each other here. No, that's really nice of you to say, Danielle. Thank you very much.
Well, it's
terrific book, both of them, great books.
I am so excited about this one, and it's Any Day Now, Breach of Contract, book number 2. It's already out in print and an ebook, but the audiobook should be in the next day or two. So I have to tell you something funny, because this is how you and I ended up working together. So when I first went to audition voices, I had tried to outline in the 15-minute, when you audition, what some of the characters should sound like. And Cepheus in my head always sounded like Benedict Cumberbatch from Sherlock. So I had this deep voice in my mind. So I got this audition from this guy who sounded exactly like him. Like I was listening to it like, oh my God, Benedict Cumberbatch is like auditioning for my book, which of course he wasn't. But the problem was every single voice he did was identical. And I'm like, this is going to sound really dark if you have Sherlock doing this entire character voices. Yours, by contrast, you had such a warm voice and you could distinguish the characters. Did you, when you started doing audiobooks, did you intend to do characters like that, or did you intend just to read?
I didn't know. When I first got into audiobooks, as you know, I was a broadcaster for 25 years plus, and I'd been running a radio station in London, and I got fired. And then COVID hit, and all of the people who I'd set up interviews with and meetings with canceled all their meetings. Oh. And so I couldn't, like showbiz, I couldn't get arrested. I couldn't get people to return my call. So I thought, well, I was on a pretty good severance deal, and I thought this money's going to run out soon. I better find something else I can do in a pandemic.
Yeah.
And so I looked at doing audiobooks. And when I first started, I had no idea what kind of books I was going to do. I didn't know if I was going to do fiction, nonfiction, whatever. So I just started auditioning for anything.
Yeah.
And the first 2 I got were both fiction books. They were about an army officer and soldiers in British officers in India during the Indian occupation. And because it was battles and lots of different soldiers, there were so many different soldiers in the cast.
Yeah.
I had to work out a way so you could tell which one was which, because they were all British. So I had to give them different regional accents in different parts of Britain, and the officers were very posh, and the men were a bit more working class, and some of them were Scotsmen, and it was basically I had to do that to make the thing work. And then as I approached more books, I was more confident in doing different characters. And after a while, when I was doing auditions, then I was more confident in doing lots of different voices, because you have to. I don't know if you necessarily have to do accents and stuff, but you have to make it clear to the listener who's talking, which in a book is much easier when in a print read book than it is in an audio form. So it was just something I kind of well, to answer your question, no, I didn't know what I was doing. I just had to make it work.
But those accents and those voices, did it come from radio? Because I discovered when I did my parts, I'm used to talking as me. And then I came across the same thing. I'm like, I've got 3 female voices on this page. What the heck was I thinking when I wrote it this way? And I had to switch back and forth. And the voices in my head, as I'm hearing what the characters sound like, were not translating to audio. So I had to do some research and practice. But for you, it's natural, because were you doing voices all this time through broadcasting?
In broadcasting, I was doing the odd voice. Like if I would do a prank phone call, because I did a lot of breakfast radio, I used to have a character who was an old man called Winston Harbottle. And I'd have him ring real people up, very confused. One of my favorites was he rang up Ann Summers, which in this country is a chain of shops that sells lingerie and sex toys.
Oh gosh!
And I rang up Ann Summers as Winston Harbottle, and told them that you've got this wonderful. My dog Biffa, he loves this dog toy that was bought from you, and he just loves it. But he's been so aggressive with it, he's damaged it, and now it doesn't work. So I'd like to order a replacement, please. You know, and the lady on the other end of the phone said, "Oh, I'm sorry, we don't sell dog toys." "Oh, yes, you do. And it looks a bit like a rabbit and it's got ears. And I take it out in the park and I switch it on and it makes this buzzing noise, which drives him crazy. And he chases it. And I throw it in the park and he goes and he goes, you know." And so I had him as a voice.
Yeah.
But in radio, I really wasn't doing that many voices. I was a breakfast radio DJ for most of it. I did a talk show as well, and interviewed people, which is very straight, almost journalism. I say almost journalism because I have no journalism. No, it was for the BBC as well. So, but I have no real journalism training. But anyway, so it wasn't from that. Most of the voices that I've ended up using in audiobooks are from people I've met or people I know. And when I was 18, my parents emigrated to New Zealand and took me with them. They ended up coming back when I was 21 and leaving me there. As I think I've told this story before. That I never left home. I was abandoned on the other side of the world. I worked on an oil refinery construction site.
Yeah.
And this thing was a melting pot for international hobos, really. Industrial hobos, shall we say, tradespeople, because it was we were constructing an oil refinery and there were 2,000 men, mostly men, on the site at any one time. There were actually 10,000 people employed on the job from the start to the finish, because you have different trades as you go through. You start off with all the civil trades, the civil engineers putting the concrete in and everything. And then as you get onto the pipe work, you get the piping and the boiler makers, and then you move on, and then you've got pre-commissioning, and then the electrical guys have put anyway. So, and as various stages of the job came along, you would meet, like you'd be working with people from all over the world, from all over the UK and all over New Zealand. So there's a lot of UK accents and different various Scottish accents from up in the Highlands where they talk like that. To Glasgow where they're a bit like that. And so these would be my foremen mostly, who I'd be working with. And we had Japanese welders. We had Australian Boilermakers were flown in for a certain amount of time. And I was exposed to many different accents from many different parts of the world. And for instance, in the current book, the second Data Collectors book, the character of Dallin, he was a block supervisor on this oil refinery at Marsden Point, and he's from a place in Britain called Hartlepool. And in Hartlepool, they talk like that, and that's how he talks, because he's a monkey hanger. I'm a monkey hanger. Because people from Hartlepool were known as monkey hangers. I don't know if you know that.
I didn't know that.
You don't know that? I mean, this is a sideline, but it is one of my favorite stories. Can I quickly tell you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because this has got.
I love your stories.
This links to. In fact, this will educate America on a brilliant story. Hartlepool is in the northeast of England by the coast.
Okay.
And in 1805, so the story goes. I don't know if it's true, but there is a memorial to this story on the quayside at Hartlepool. But anyway, in 1805, it's the Napoleonic Wars. So Britain, one of the many wars where we're fighting the French. We've just got over another one called Brexit. But anyway, we're fighting the French, and a French ship runs aground in a storm off the coast of Hartlepool. And all of the crew are killed. None of them make it to shore, except a monkey, which they had on board the ship. They'd obviously been out to Africa or somewhere. They got a monkey on the ship, the sailors, and they dressed it up in a French sailor's uniform, and they had this monkey on a ship. The live monkey is found on the shore at Hartlepool, and the locals discover the monkey. And, this is 1805 in the northeast of England. They've never seen a monkey before. They've also never seen a Frenchman. But they know that the French are the enemy.
Oh, no.
And he's in a uniform, and he's speaking another language. And so they have a trial, a kangaroo court, and find him guilty as a French spy because he won't answer any of the questions. And he's hanged.
Aww.
So people from...
And you're not making, this is for real. You're not...
This is a real story. You can check
gullible.
it out.
Okay.
There's a Wikipedia page. Just put monkey hanger. Right.
Oh my gosh.
So from then on, people from Hartlepool are known as monkey hangers. Right? So if you're from Hartlepool, you're a monkey hanger. Now, years ago, I can remember in the 1970s, people from Hartlepool didn't like being called monkey hangers. Didn't like it.
Yeah.
But something happened around the 80s, and I don't know, it was Enlightenment or whatever, and they kind of embraced it and said, yeah, we're monkey hangers, so what? And that was their thing, which is why I think there's the memorial on the quayside in Hartlepool to the monkey being hung. Anyway, so the local soccer team, Hartlepool United, they have a mascot, and the mascot is Angus the monkey.
Oh my gosh.
So it's a bloke in a suit, in a monkey suit. So the bloke in the suit is called Stuart Drummond. And they didn't used to have elected mayors in the UK. And then they decided in some places, if you want an elected mayor, you can have an elected mayor rather than them being the Lord Mayor, which is almost like a retired councillor. Yeah. So they decided they're going to have elected mayors. So Stuart Drummond, as Angus the monkey, stands for mayor. And he wins. And so the monkey hangers now have Angus the monkey as the mayor of Hartlepool. This is in 2002. But he actually turned out to be a really good mayor and was re-elected twice in 2005 and 2009. And he's only not the mayor now because in 2013 they had another vote and decided, not to have elected mayors anymore. Otherwise, so yeah, that's Hartlepool. So I know it's a long way around, but here's a great story, isn't it? The monkey hanger story.
And now I'm never going to hear Dallin the same way again.
Dallin is a monkey hanger. Yeah.
So I'm curious.
To answer your question about the characters, most of them are based on people that I've met at some time in my life, either from working in construction or when I was an air conditioning engineer, or many of the freaks I've met working in radio as well.
But hearing those voices and being able to do them are two different things. The fact that you can pick it up and run with it, so first, in my case, I'd go for my morning walk or I'd be biking because I realized as soon as I started recording that my voice was too flat. They all sounded the same. So I started practicing pronouncing vowels different or changing the pitch or talking from the back of my throat versus like the roof of my mouth. And I'd go online and I didn't want to have a specific region because this is aired. This is not this planet. So I didn't have to be authentic with any of the accents, right?
Yeah,
but I would think, okay, I want somebody to sound sort of like this. So I'd go and I'd listen to some region and I'd like write in the script and take little notes. So Royce had, her D's were always T's and her TH's were F's. Or, with Sabrina, I ended up putting my two teeth together. So she always sounded like she was talking with disdain. But I had to practice them. And every time I thought I'd get it, I'd get to the page where they're all going back and forth. I'm like, oh.
But you did a great job on them, though. They all come out distinctly different. Lucine, in particular, I really enjoyed. But all of them.
So she was the easiest because that was just me.
But she's a version of you. She's not. It's not like we're talking now. She's
right. No, she's crazy. I like to think I'm relatively normal. But her voice is my voice. Like I didn't change her voice in any way.
But I can tell it's not you. Because you must know the character.
Yeah.
Because
I definitely tried to act. I mean, I tried to make it seem authentic. Right. So yeah. No, she's not me.
She's great though.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, but it is, but you should be able to, because you're musical. Do you sing?
I do sing.
Because it's really singing. Accents are really singing, I think. Well, yeah,
I never thought of it that way.
Well, it's true. If you were to sing opera, you would sing it in the style of an opera singer. You're almost doing an impersonation of an opera singer. But if you're singing a rock song, you're going to sing it American. Even British singers sing rock songs as Americans. We do. Listen to the Beatles
you
talk.
You purposefully change your accent as you're singing. I mean, I know I try to do my
The Beatles didn't sing "She Loves You," yes, yes, yes.
I never thought of that.
It becomes American. So singing really is, and I was a singer in a band, and that must have a bearing on it, on
I'm
how
going to
it's
have to
done.
try that, but it would be interesting as an experiment because I'm learning to play the piano, both for real learning the music and also learning chords to sing along. So I'm learning two different ways at once. And I used to sing all the time and I haven't as much, but I need to try that before I do the characters next, like sing as a character. I'm going to try that just as a fun experiment and see what comes up.
Yeah. What I do with the characters is, for instance, you mentioned the Queen. What's her name again?
Sabrina.
Sabrina, right.
Yeah.
Well, her husband, he's the consort, really, isn't he? He's not the king. He's more her consort, right? So for that, I thought, well, who can I think of like that? And of course, I think of Prince Philip. So I don't know if you noticed when you listen to it, but I do him as Prince Philip.
When I hear them, I hear the TV show The Windsors with Camilla and Charles. So every time Hamish speaks, I just see Charles.
Yeah, well, Charles is the son of Philip. Right, so yeah,
so close enough.
Yeah, close enough. That's it. And there's another book I did for another lady, and it's a fantasy thing set in a surreal world, not another planet, but a surreal realm. Mm-hmm. And there was a character who was a miner, and I thought, well, he goes down the mines. Well, they're from Yorkshire, and so I got him before I did your first book, and then I used him again to be Frodo.
Yeah,
to make him Yorkshire. Because he just seemed like he was more working class. He wasn't a royal. He was a slightly, maybe having the British class system helps.
Yeah, right. But also, it's almost like you have a dozen different voices that it doesn't matter which book you're doing, like whether it's mine or someone else's, you kind of have that Rolodex of, okay, I need this accent and I need this voice. Like you could almost pull them up, right? You're not
a little bit. Like, for instance, Ivan the Tinkerer in your book.
Yeah.
He was also one of those soldiers in India. Yeah.
Well, that Ivan, he's crafty. He might have been.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a few like that. Yeah. Like there was the one you gave me for your book, Jasper.
Oh, and you were such a good Jasper.
Well, you gave me a note for that. You said you wanted him to be like Jack Nicholson.
Or he didn't have to be like that, but for some reason, that's who I'm hearing Jack Nicholson in Batman, like that kind of over-the-top personality. And
I don't do impressions, so I don't do Jack Nicholson, but I wanted to get that kind of vibe. And I did that for him, and I used it for him. And now I'm doing another book right now, and there's a baddie in it, and I'm thinking, that Jasper character would work really well here. And now he's in another book that I'm in the middle of right now. So he's returned. Yeah.
So was he your favorite character? Because it seemed like you really enjoyed him.
I did, yeah, because he was so over the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's like that, and he's like, and I have to put my chin out and go like,
I'm glad we're doing video for this.
Yeah. And yeah, he was so much fun to do. The baddies are always way more fun than anything. And I kept hearing that from actors in like TV interviews on chat shows and that. And I was thinking, I wonder what that's all about. Well, I totally understand it now.
Well, because you're always trying to be like the good person and do the right thing. And in these characters, you get to like the alter ego, the person that you'd be if, if you didn't care what people thought and you just, it's a permission to be somebody else, and evil is fun.
Yeah, it really is.
So here's a weird thing that happened, and I feel somewhat justified after I started watching. John put me on to the I Know That Voice documentary, and I haven't watched the whole thing, but
I watched the trailer. You put me onto it yesterday, and I watched the trailer to it. It looks great. I haven't seen the whole thing yet, though. Yeah.
So I learned something after the fact, because here I am recording a small part of Hesekiah at the end, and I didn't even realize I was doing it. I'm like going like this. I'm reading her voice, and my head is moving side to side like a snake in my hands. And then as soon as I realized what I was doing, I'm like, I'm here by myself, but it felt so
doing
weird.
it. No, you got to keep doing it. Like I'm at a slight disadvantage now because this is a very small closet, as you would call it, that I turned into a studio, and so I'm getting a bigger one. I'm ordering it's a voice booth that you buy. It's going to be much bigger, so just purely so I can move around more because I think I'll sound better. Yeah.
I've seen some of those before. It was an option of doing that, or this is a relatively small room, so it was not horrible to kind of make it more sound resistant. But so what kind of prep do you have to do? Like, did you first, like tips for people who say want to do audiobooks? So in my case, I only did this first thing in the morning. And honestly, Fatima was easy to do in the morning because she's kind of got a gravelly voice. In my head, Fatima had a very lovely sing-song voice, but for some reason she came out Brooklyn. and I realized that first thing in the morning before your throat's clear and you're kind of like, I was like, it was really easy to do her that gravelly, like morning voice. But I didn't have anything to eat. I would do like either unsweetened tea or coffee, but I was worried if I ate something, I'd be like, it would change the voice. Do you make any kind of adjustments because you're doing this all day now, right?
Yeah, no, well, I can't, if I've got for anyone who doesn't know this, audiobooks are long. If anyone's done like voiceover, where a commercial is 60 seconds or 30 seconds, no, these can go. How long did yours go in the end?
I think mine ended up being almost 11 hours when it was done. 10 and a half, 11. Yeah.
Yeah. So the key to that is consistency, because if you're coming back to the same character again and again and again, they got to sound the same every time. Yeah. And even the narrator part, which I always just do as my voice, it can't change. It has to be the same. And my voice in the morning is different to later on in the day. So I cannot, anything that's continuing, I can't do in the morning. I simply can't do it.
Yeah.
So what I do is the first thing I do in the morning is I do auditions, because they're not a continuation of anything. So it doesn't matter how it comes out.
Yeah.
It'll, maybe I'm ripping people off. Maybe think, we like that deep voice guy. How come he doesn't sound like that? Now we're paying him. I don't know. But yeah, so I do that, and that helps to warm it up. Yeah. And it also forces me to do auditions every day. So I, keep the pipeline going and keep the work coming in. Yeah. So yeah, as far as that goes, yeah, I always do that. And I've tried something. The book I'm working on now has about, I think it's 25 or 30 characters. There are a lot.
Wow.
And they're all ghosts and stuff. And some of them are British. Some of them are from Maine in the USA. Some of them are from New York State, and they're from all different places, and they're all different names, and they're male and female and everything. And when I first did the audition for the lady, she said, "Oh yeah, but there are a lot more voices than in this audition." And the audition is about 15.
Wow.
And I said to her, "Well, I'll have a bash, And she said, "Okay." She says, "Well, I'm going to send you a list of the characters and a line and a blurb about each one, and and a line for you to read, and I'll tell you whether." This is before I'd got the job. She was checking me out. And I said, "Okay." So I said, "Look, here's what I'll do. I'll do each one, and I'll make a Google Drive file that you can access, and you can tell me if I've got them, and if I haven't got them, give me some notes and I'll change them." And she gave me the notes on about 3 of them, and I changed them. Well, that file, I go to that all the time in this book, because this morning, or not this morning, because I don't do it early in the morning, but before I was talking to you, one came out and it was Celeste, and I'm like, Celeste? Which one was Celeste? I can't remember, because there's a Celine as well. Right. And I'm like, which one was Celeste? So I went straight to this audio and listened to 30 seconds of me doing it and go, okay, got it. And then carried on. And that's the first time I've done that. With yours, I have a list, and I have, I'll have like Hamish, Prince Philip, and that's all it'll say. Yeah. And then I'll know, and I'll do it, and and so I can go back just in case. But for the first time on her one, but actually it's quite a good way to work if you've got a reference piece of audio that the author's got as well, just in case there's any dispute down the line. If she says to me, "That's not really how I want him," I can go, "Hey, I'm done him exactly the way the thing that you heard was." Because I've had that too. It's only happened twice. I've done 36 audiobooks now since May. Yeah.
Wow.
And it's only happened twice where authors have got funny about characters after we're already going. And both times I've bailed out. I've said no. The first one it was an English character. It was a rap artist, and I did him a certain way. He'd wanted other things to share. There's always other red flags. It's not just this.
Yeah.
But this is like the final straw. And then he says, "Oh no, I want you to change him." And I go, "Look, well, we've already done an hour of the audiobook. I'm not going to go back and change it now. You listened to it and you said it was fine. You can't just change your mind. This is like a 12-hour project. I'm not going to be doing this for every chapter." So I bailed on that one. Yeah. And there was another one. It was a similar thing. I can't remember exactly what that was, but yeah. But if I can have this reference audio, I might do that now that the author can access too.
Yeah.
That we've agreed on, this is what this character will sound like.
And already that's quite different. Like I said, that when you listen to other artists out there, they're just reading the book and they might have some characters, but not the depth of what you're doing. Are you locked in? Like if you get halfway through to that contract and they say, "I want you to do this over again," where you could say, "Okay, well then I'm charging you X amount." Like
no,
you can't customize it.
I don't. I suppose I could, but I don't, because I like having a relationship with the authors I work with. And I know if I look after them, that when their next book comes up, they're going to talk to me. And they may even know a few authors as well. And no, I think if I do a character and they're not happy with it and it's the first time it's appeared, fine. And then we move on. But if they've already said that's fine and then they change their mind,
then you just don't want to work with them.
No, is that terrible?
I've actually in my own business doing like freelance work, whether it's writing or publicity or something else. If I get that client who's always nitpicky and they always say, "Yes, I love this," and then you're 80% done, and then they're like, "Can you go and change all this?" So those are the people that, in the old days when I needed the work, it was okay. I'm going to build in the pain in the ass fee because I know I'm going to redo stuff, but as my business grew, I just am like, if I don't like working with them, I don't bother. And I'm loyal. I stick with people. So now you've spoiled me rotten. So now I can't work with anybody else other than you for audiobooks, and Cindy, who you spoke with as far as publishing, we've worked together over 10 years. Doc Roger, I've worked with him over a decade. When you find good people that you want to
look after them and you want them.
Exactly.
Yeah. And if you changed your mind, I'd go, "Okay, Danielle's changed her mind. That's fine." But when you're first working with someone and it's, and I don't know if many other people do it this way. When I first, the first 2 audiobooks I did, they weren't for, if anybody doesn't know, there are 2 ways of getting paid. You can get paid for production, you get paid per finished hour, or you can get paid where you get a share of the royalty of the sales of the book, which means you don't get anything up front, which the first 2 I did that way, which was fine. But then it's like, I can't wait for this money because my severance check is going to run out. So I had to change tack. But then when I started doing the per finished hour work, I broke it up so that I send the author it's in 2-hour chunks now. Yeah. And then the author approves that and we move on. Because the last thing I want to do if you do a 10-hour book is then you find, "Oh no, in chapter 3 we need to change this, in chapter 7 we need to change it." I don't want all the work at the end. I don't mind doing the work and doing the corrections because I'm going to make mistakes and there's going to be things not right. That's part of the deal. And I'll have to correct them and fix them up so that the author's happy. But I don't want to just have that all at the end because, that's time I could be working on another book.
Right.
And so I do it as we go. And that came about by being ripped off, funnily enough.
Huh.
Before I'd actually achieved any per finished hour work, like I said, the first 2 were royalty share books. I got asked to do. I did an audition for one. It was a meditation book, and a meditation book's really, really easy because there's no characters. You talk really slowly. You've got loads of time between. You can read ahead while and breathe in and out. You've got loads of time. They're great meditation books. Anyway, so I got this meditation book and it was called 10 1-hour meditations. So I did the first one and I did it as slow as I could and it ran for about 50 minutes. And I thought, it's near as damn it an hour, I suppose. Yeah. So then I did the next meditation and it ran for about 42. And then I did it. And then eventually I did one, and it was about 28 minutes. And I couldn't drag it out. I tried everything.
Could you cut some space in it?
I cut spaces in it. I slowed it down without altering the pitch, and I couldn't get it past about 38. I think I couldn't get it much longer.
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought, to hell with it. So I put it in anyway. So I did, and this was before I worked out to break them up. I did, 10 finished hours.
Yeah.
And turned it in. And the guy came back to me and said, nah, this is no good. I'm not paying you. Because he was paying me per finished hour. He said, I'm not paying you because the book's called 10 1-hour meditations and not one of them is an hour. And I went back to him and said, the manuscripts aren't long enough to make it that. Send me longer manuscripts. And before that, he'd said, can you put music behind it? And I went, yeah, give me some music. I'll stick it behind it. Oh, no, you have to find the music. I said, well, I'm not finding uncopyrighted music or performing uncopyrighted music. So he'd been in anything else anyway. And
that's somebody who shouldn't be creating a meditation book, in my opinion.
Exactly. As it turned out, it was a scam. It was, what he was doing was he was downloading it from the preview site or something, and he got a 10-hour audiobook, but he found a way of not paying me. So he's putting it out some other way, not through ACX, although I did get it through ACX, but he's, I don't know if he's putting it on cassette, and I don't know what he's doing.
Because when you send me the auditions, I can download to listen to it. So he's just downloading it and taking it.
Yeah. And change the title. Just call it 10 Meditations. The 1-hour thing he deliberately put in there so he wouldn't have to pay me. So from then on, I said, right, that's it. I'm going to do the first hour. They can pay the first hour, and then I'll move on and do the next 2, and then I'll, or whatever. Yeah. And I decided to do it that way. But that worked out great because it meant that you do the corrections as you go.
Yeah.
And it also means that the author doesn't just hand it over to you for like 2 weeks or something and not know what's going on. Yeah. Every couple of days they get more audio and they can see, okay, there's it gives them more confidence as well. So that worked out great. So that was one of the things I set it up to try and stop myself from being ripped off. I didn't mind doing an hour for nothing, but I'm not doing 10 hours for nothing. So I set it up to do that, but it ended up being something else. It ended up helping with the whole process of just breaking it up. And then you feel like you're working with the author too, rather than the author's handed it over to me and then I hand it back to them when it's done. No, that's not how it should be. It's their work. Yeah. They've put a lot of work into this. They've got to know. That's one of the things that worked out great. What it wasn't designed to do that, but it did something better. And the second one was, in the auditions to get work, I decided, well, what can I bring to it that's my USP? And I thought, well, I've got a background in broadcasting. Not all narrators are going to have that. And I can quite happily chat to people and interview them like we're doing now. And I've got a website. I can put that on my website. Yeah. And I can help them once the book's out. I can help them promote the book and get more sales, regardless of whether I'm getting a share of the royalty or not. It helps with that long-term relationship with the people that you're working with. So I thought I can do that. And that was the reason why I set that up. And that's why you're on GrahamMack.com. But I set that up to do that, to help sell the books.
Yeah.
But I started finding that the authors were actually, during our chat, would say, oh, it was really nice to work with you and whatever. And I thought, hey, wait a minute. They're endorsing how I work. So I would then, and I'm pretty sure I did it with yours. I think you said that near the end or in the middle or something. I cut that in the video and put it at the very beginning so that if someone's checking me out after I've auditioned and said, look, check out my website, here's some audiobooks I've done. When they click that and play, they see an author endorsing what I do to help me get more work. But I started doing it, honestly, I started doing it to help sell the author's books. But it's turned out to be the authors are helping to sell me to other authors. Yeah. So it's funny how 2 things I set up with one motivation actually delivered another one, which was really beneficial. It was even more beneficial.
And for the record, I am happy to do any kind of endorsement video if you wanted. I'm just saying, I'm happy to script it and do it because you're awesome to work with. And that was actually one of my requirements when I set out to find someone to do the audio, because the people that I work with, we support each other. I had Sydney on the show with Skinny Leopard Media because I wanted her to talk about her company and her business. I had Joan Peters, the artist, to talk about, her unique style, because I feel like it should be a collaborative, everybody looking out for each other. The people that I've worked with, and they're fine, where I say, I need this project done. And they say, okay, it'll cost this much. We trade hands. I give them the money. Thank you. And then I'm on social media tagging them saying, thanks for the great work. And they're like, thanks. Like, you know, or if you mention them, they'll share it, but they don't turn around and share your stuff like it was all one-sided. And I'm like, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? I pay them to do the job. They are, yeah, sure. They did it.
Yeah.
And I'm more interested in the people who are interested in everybody's long-term success, not just for like the one project. To me,
but
that's
also
really
it's fascinating people. You know, I've worked with an author in China. I've worked with them all over the USA and in the UK. And it's just fascinating. Look, you know, we've been locked down since March and I've been sitting in this wardrobe, but I'm talking to a guy in China about his time travel book, you know, and it's just, well, it's just really nice. It's a social thing as well. It sounds bizarre, but it really is, because you meet new people and all of the people you meet are interesting because they're storytellers. Yeah. They're interesting people. It's funny though, there have been a few that have said that have refused, that didn't, you know, to do the videos to go on YouTube. There's one company, I've done 5 books for them now, and no, they don't want any publicity.
What about audio or pre-recorded? Are they nervous or?
I don't know. Some of them it must be. There's one is an author, and he did a really good book, and I was a talking cat through the whole book, and it was a real good fun book, and I thought, oh, he'll be interesting to talk to. No, doesn't want to talk to me. Doesn't want to. He's just he's not comfortable. He's genuinely not comfortable with it. But another guy doesn't want any publicity for his business, and I've done 5 books for various authors that he's got in his publishing company. He's just not interested, and that's just the way they are. There was one though that should have tipped me off. There was one where I think it was after I got finished our work, I did do a royalty share only book because it was left over from auditions I'd done previously. Mm-hmm. And it turned out to be, I've only done 9 which are paying me a royalty. And it was the one that was paying me the most. It was selling the most, so therefore it was paying the most. And it was a diet book. And I hated it, recording it. I hated it because the first time it was a diet book for people with a particular medical condition. It was actually, I'll say what it was for. It was for people with irritable bowel syndrome, and it was a diet for people who have this condition. So the first half of the book was all about the condition. So it was all like medical Latin words for parts of the body and organs and things. So it was really boring. And then the second half was all recipes. So it was like lists and what to do.
How can you do that in audio? I
exactly
cook a lot.
And French words, you know, for different ingredients. And I'm not a cook, you know. And so it went for it was like 8 hours or something. It was a long book, and it was horrible to do. And I finished it, and I hated it. And then when it started selling, I got to like it a lot more. Well, because I didn't have to do it anymore, and it was making money, right? I liked it a bit more. And it was funny. It was through an agency kind of thing, and I got in touch with them and said, you know, there was 2 authors on it, one with doctors, and I said, would they like to do a thing? Because it might be interesting to talk to them. And I didn't hear anything back. It was silent. So I got in touch with them again 3 or 4 times, and I heard nothing back. And I thought, oh, that's odd. And this thing's like selling more and more, hundreds of copies. And I'm getting, you know, was it like $8 or something off every copy? You know, it was really going good. And then ACX contacted me and said, no, this guy's broken our rules, and this book is coming down. You're not going to make any more. What it turned out to be, the guy had found the book on Kindle or something, downloaded it, pretended he was the rights holder, and because he was sharing the royalty as well. So that I made illegal money from a bootleg. So, yeah.
But not only that, now they pulled it and you have no recourse. You just now...
No, I did all that work and that's it. Nothing. But as it turned out, you know, I did all right while it was going. It would have been, I'm sure it would have been quite legit for them to say you can't have any of that money because it was illegally made, even though I had no idea. I entered into the process as if it was genuine. And it's funny, I had another one of those this week. I auditioned for an audiobook that was, they call it Royalty Share Plus. You know how that one works?
No.
Royalty share, you know how you've got royalty share payments where you get paid a royalty per book you sell, or you've got per finished hour. There's a hybrid version of that too called Royalty Share Plus, where you pay a lower fee per finished hour and you still share half of the royalty each. And I thought, well, that sounds, maybe I'll do a bit of that because, passive income and all that going forward might be handy. So I auditioned for one of these that was that way. And they came back to me with an offer, but the offer was for royalty share only. And I thought, to be fair, in the blurb it said royalty share or royalty share plus. And I thought, well, if they ask me the question, I'll say I want royalty share plus. So I auditioned for it and got it. And they said it was royalty share only. And I thought, no, I don't know. Let's just see if this thing will sell. So I looked up the title on Amazon and it had 900 reviews.
So it was another one that was already out there.
Well, it had 9, but it meant, well, I didn't know that. It was already out there as a Kindle book,
but not as an audiobook. Okay.
And it had 900 reviews as a Kindle book.
Okay.
And it was in the top 3,000 sellers in the world on Amazon. And I thought, well, maybe I will do a royalty share deal on this one because it looks like this will sell.
Yeah.
And it was a book about astronomy, and it was written by the Vatican astronomer. I forget his name, but he's a really famous astronomer.
I know who you're talking about. I don't think of his name.
Him, right? Yeah. And so I get this thing, and you know what you have to record the credits for who owns the copyright. So with yours, it's Danielle Palli, whatever. Yeah. And with his, the copyright wasn't his name. The copyright was one word, Raymond. Yeah. This guy's not Raymond. And I'm thinking, this is a bit of a red flag because it seems a little too good to be true. Yeah. And I also got the work. It was last weekend. I also got the work on the Sunday. And the stuff that comes through on the weekend is the dodgiest stuff for some reason. Huh. And so I found the author. I tracked him down and sent him some Twitter messages. Because I thought this could be genuine. So I just said, really looking forward to working with you. If you've got any notes that will help me out, pronunciations of constellations, and tell me, whatever. And I didn't hear anything back. And then I got a note from him basically saying, I don't know anything about this. And I'm like, oh, hello. So then I contacted Raymond and said, look, this is, I'm just going through this. And there are diagrams in this book and labeled photographs of the moon. Exactly how should I treat this in an audiobook form? And then I got no, I did that first because I was already suspicious. And then I got the message from the actual author saying, I don't know anything about this. Yeah. And that's when I messaged him again and said, look, he says he doesn't know anything about this. And then he went completely silent. So I reported him to ACX.
Yeah. And, so you get the Raymonds, I get the Nigerian prince who wants me to deposit.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. He literally just taken the book, the Kindle book, and was trying to make money off it.
So how do you avoid that? How do you avoid that? I mean, you can't entirely, but you're doing some research now before you take a project.
Well, it's easier if you're working directly with the author. When you're working with a third party, I think you've just got to be a bit more careful. And I'll be doing that from now on. If I get a third party one, I'll see if I can track down the actual author. Yeah. And, because that's who I want to work with anyway. I want to get the notes and stuff from them. Yeah. And see if I can work it out. So it is a bit, it's all because it's all so new, the audiobook thing, I think. I mean, there are, older audiobooks, and I know that because I did an audition the other day and it said one of the characters, think David Niven. So I looked him up and I found from the 1970s on YouTube, they've got David Niven reading his own autobiography, The Moon's a Balloon. And so I could listen to that and then try and do David Niven. So the book on tape was the old thing, wasn't it? It must be from that.
Yeah. So, audiobooks are new. And then the multicast, I really think you've got something there to keep producing.
Oh, this is brand new. We're getting more than one narrator to handle the characters.
Yeah. And how,
that was so much fun.
And how interesting, I mean, because we've never met. We're in two different countries, and yet we can produce a book together, which I find.
Isn't that cool?
Because people ask me, it's like, well, did you get on like a call like this to read? And I said, no, because I use different equipment when I'm recording the audio than when I'm just, doing an interview. So yeah, this was a lot of fun for me. And I would not have done it had you not, said, hey, why don't you record these parts? So thank you for encouraging me to do it. I've done a lot of voiceover work, but again, it was always like me or like one voice that's a little different. It was not this array, and it was so much fun.
How many did you have to do in the end? Do you remember? Must have been 10 at least.
Yeah, at least 10. I don't have the list, but what I ended up doing is, like, you do your audio segment, which is a great idea. I would leave notes for myself, Reverend Isabella, she kind of had this Caribbean flair. So her voice was very heavy, and she'd start off under pitch and come up, so I'd have to remember how, the different things. But did you base these on people you knew, particularly her? Do you not have a Caribbean friend? No, I just, I know people who sound sort of like some of the characters, but I couldn't place it. Mostly I just had a voice in my head, and I would look up different accents. And if I found one that I said that could work, I would do a little research, like a YouTube video, how to speak with a German accent. And again, I wasn't trying to necessarily be German, but get some tips from somebody who was like a native speaker. So I can do it better, I think, with more practice, because me practicing for 10 minutes and then going into the recording, so I'd actually, just for fun, and I warned John, I'm going to start learning voices, and I might walk around the house talking in a different voice all day, which might get annoying. I don't know, but I think it'd be fun.
Did you find, though, that you were doing a voice, or did you find that you were becoming a character?
It depended on who it was. So Lucine, I didn't have to change anything in my voice other than like acting a little nutballs. But I mean, for the other ones, it depends on how comfortable. And maybe that's why Heisikia and Kiki, you don't know her name. She's the embassy. She has a one line in the Hat Check Girl at the Embassy. She shows up in book 3, and she was so much fun. So some of them, when they came out organically and I didn't plan them, I felt like I was the character. With Isabella, while I can relate very much to her character, there was a lot of focus on the voice that I wanted to get the acting down, but it was a little bit of a struggle, getting into that flow for me.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question? I'm not sure.
Yeah, because I find I try as hard as I can to become the character.
Yeah.
And it's quite easy with your books because they're so well written. And
Thank you.
No, it's true. You describe how they are, and you can feel their motivation. And you get someone like Marzipan. He's very small. He's a little insect, and he's very timid. And you could feel that in the writing that's how he was.
Yeah.
So that's how I played him. And yeah, they do become friends.
Yeah.
Which sounds
He'd be an interesting one when we talk again to talk about, because he came out of a dream. My superpower is napping, because every time I'll have the weirdest dreams, and I'll wake up and I'll be like, I can do something with that. And so I literally had a dream about him and woke up, and I'm not an artist, but I tried to sketch him out. And so he was like burning in my brain, and I'd look at the sketch and I'd be like, okay, what's your story? And that's how he got woven into it.
Wow. So the key to being a good writer is eating a lot of cheese before you go to bed.
And take a lot of naps. Yeah. I'm trying to cut down on my cheese habit. I've actually been cooking now. I'm up to vegan, vegetarian. I do like 4 or 5 times a week. So just trying to balance the cheese to plant ratio.
There's some great fake cheese though, because I'm vegan and we get great fake
I have
cheese,
tried. Okay,
slices.
So I'm a cheese snob. I have tried a lot of the artisan vegan cheeses, and I like the recipes, but I'm having a hard time finding ones that are like the real thing. I'm on a quest. But if you have a recommendation of ones that you like, I will order them and give them a try.
The trick seems to be to go for the ones that are trying to be cheddar are not going to be, even the best ones are only going to be cheddar. but the ones to go for are the ones that say that they're mature and aged, and the ones that are going for something. They're the ones that usually come out the best.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll do some research on vegan essentials.
Now, whether it will still make you dream freaky dreams and put freaky characters,
Right?
I don't know if it'll still do that job.
Well, yeah, we'll see. Hey, before we wrap up, can you talk briefly about not only the Pod 20, tell people about it, but also I'm curious, when this pandemic is over, are you coming out of the wardrobe, or are you going to, are there other things that you want to do?
Okay.
Because you seem like a real people person. I can't imagine you wanting to stay in there all the time.
Maybe that's why I like talking to authors on Zoom so much. I don't know. I can't remember what month it was. I'd already started doing audiobooks when Jerry from Podcast Radio just contacted me, because I knew Jerry. He, the radio station I was at in London, his radio station. The weird thing about Jerry is Jerry was running a radio station in London called Panda Radio, which was for the Chinese community. And I was running a radio station called Fix Radio, which was actually for builders and tradesmen on construction sites.
Okay.
And they were on the floor above us. And so I knew Jerry from that. And Panda, the Chinese government were bankrolling them or something. Anyway, the Chinese money disappeared and the radio station folded. And Jerry came to me at the time asking for a job, because I needed a breakfast show to launch we were expanding to Manchester from London as well. I needed a breakfast show from up there, and he's from up north. And I knocked him back. I found a different one. So I said I didn't. He came to me for a job, and I said no. And then fast forward only about 12 months, and my radio station goes through a hard time, and they fire me. And Jerry has set up from scratch podcast radio in London, which is now also on the air in Manchester and Glasgow on DAB and around the world everywhere else. And it showcases people's podcasts. Yeah. And he rang me and he offered me a job. I mean, that is just...
But then you had no hard feelings.
Oh, no, because I did it nicely. I said no. Because at the time I was bringing in a terrific talent from Australia, actually. Yeah. A guy called Ugly Phil, who is a great broadcaster. They fired him not long after they fired me, and he's gone back to Australia. Why is all
this firing? It's not doing a bad job. Is it just financial things?
It's radio. Oh. It's radio. Radio is like that. Radio, getting into radio for job security is like joining a monastery for the sex. So then I left one radio station and I went to be the boss at another radio station, fired the breakfast show and put myself on breakfast as well as being the boss. And I've run 3 different commercial radio stations. And that's fun as well, but it still ends badly. And so to answer your question, after pandemic, will I come out of the wardrobe and go back to radio? I don't know. I said to Julie, why would I want to go through all that again? Because it's not nice. And when you get fired in radio, you usually can't find a job in the area where you live. Yeah. And you have a no-compete clause that says you're not allowed to. And so we've usually had to move. The first radio job I got in Britain, and I'd started in Australia, but the first radio job I got in Britain was on the South Coast. Yeah. And then the next job I got was in the Northeast, almost in Scotland. It was like at least 300 miles away, which I know for America isn't a long way, but for here it is. And so you have to move hundreds of miles, and you have to set up and start again in a new town where you know nobody, but you have to know the town really quickly to get on the air and bond with the audience. Yeah. And it's really quite tough when, I could be doing funny voices in my wardrobe. Yeah. But I'm enjoying doing audiobooks right now, and I'm enjoying doing yours. And so there's nothing to worry about. It's not an option right now. So it's not a decision I have to make.
Fair enough. Graham, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Danielle. Pleasure.